like to spend a couple of minutes just talking about sleep hygiene. This is a kind of a buzz phrase that encompasses some kind of rules and guidance that we provide to people to set, a better kind of foundation for good quality sleep, right? So if you're tackling your sleep apnea, incorporating good sleep hygiene practices is also going to just better your general overnights, right? So a couple of important things about sleep hygiene. So first and foremost is, we want to focus on your environment. So what we mean by that is you have an environment dedicated just to sleep. Make it really as dark as you possibly can, minimize as much light as possible, and keep it cooler, right? A little bit of a cooler environment is more conducive to, better sleep onset. Additionally, we want you to focus on having consistency around your sleep routine. So what I mean by that is consistent bedtimes and consistent wake up times, right? So really, if somebody's suffering from insomnia or has trouble falling asleep, it's more about what time they wake up, not so much what time they go to bed. So your body has a kind of a 24-hour, we call it the circadian clock, which is just telling us when it's time to be awake and when it's time to be asleep, right? There's different hormone things that impact that, but a really important one is light. So early morning light exposure to the eyes signals to the brain that it's time to wake up and be awake for the day. So if you can focus on having, a consistent time that you get up every day, even on the weekends, and then get outside and get some exposure to the sun first thing, that's going to kind of set your body into the right 24-hour cycle. Now, the other side of that coin is that we need some consistency in the, kind of removing of light when it's almost time for bed. So we have a lot of light pollution in our society, and we spend way too much time with our eyes in front of screens, our phones, our TVs, our tablets, and the blue light that's coming from our phones is kind of suppress the melatonin, which is one of the kind of the hormone signals that tells your body it's time to be drowsy and sleepy. So if you can avoid a lot of light exposure before bed, that will also help you get to sleep. We'd also recommend avoiding caffeine too late in the day. It does take a while for caffeine to fully, leave the system. So that is something that, is mindful for people, as well as, timing of eating, right? A lot of people will tell me if they eat too much too late in the day, it really slows them down and impacts their rest. Alcohol and certain medications can impact sleep. So while alcohol makes it easier to fall asleep, it does impact your sleep quality. So, avoiding excess alcohol is going to lead to a better night's rest as well. One other thing that I think is really important is that you create an environment around your bed that tells your brain it's time for bed. Okay, so you got to avoid other activities in bed. Bed is for sleep and for sex. That's it. You should not be eating in bed. You should not be watching TV in bed, working in bed. That's going to tell your brain that bed is a place to be alert and active and not to be drowsy and sleepy. So, bed is for sleep. And when it comes to people that suffer from insomnia issues, right, where they're waking up throughout the night and then staring at the ceiling and their hamster wheels turning on, what we want in those environments, in that situation, is if you wake up in the middle of the night and that your brain is starting to kick on into overdrive and you're thinking about everything, please get out of bed. Get out of bed, okay? When you get out of bed, it removes the stress around having to go to sleep and watching the clock, right? So clock watching is not helpful. If you can get up, maybe walk around a little bit or go to kind of a quiet, calm environment, read a little bit, avoid, something that's super stimulating like watching TV. That's just going to help to kind of remake the brain drowsy so that once you're starting to feel drowsy again, you can get back into bed and get back to rest. For some people, it can be helpful to have meditation apps, right? Where you're focusing on some deep breathing or having a little bit of mindfulness in bed. And those can be helpful to, kind of shut this, the system down a little bit. Some people, journaling can be helpful if you're starting to have a little bit of anxiety cropping up. Just writing down some of the things that are going on, so that you're kind of removing them from the brain, putting them on paper to get you back into a drowsy state. That's going to be helpful too. So those, if you're suffering really from a lot of, insomnia type of issues, we're really going to be focusing more on cognitive behavioral therapy. That's, if you Google that, cognitive behavioral therapy, that's really the best treatment for insomnia. And that's really just about brain retraining, for your environment. So, focusing on all these things we just talked about, that just creates a good state for your body to be primed, that once you get into bed, it's ready to go to sleep. And so these can be helpful for people, to keep in mind. But really the big one is the light. So take those into consideration, and hopefully that'll help just establish some better sleep rhythms for you.